Hi, I want to talk to you today about depression and suicide. I just got done doing a segment with Lynn Smith this morning on HLN, and today is April 8th. And we have here locally in Denver, Colorado, as well as around the country, have a real crisis when it comes to children having suicidal thoughts and actually completing suicide. So I thought I would spend a couple minutes just doing a little bit of a deeper dive on our segment. The reason why we did it this morning is there was a JAMA article that came out that basically said that ER visits are skyrocketing for kids and suicidal thoughts, that they have over the last 10 years doubled in people coming into ERs having suicidal thoughts. There's over 1 million visits a year, and the average age is 13 years old. So focusing on kids, 43% of them are between the ages of 5 and 11. And if that doesn't give you pause, I really don't know what would. I mean, almost half of ER visits for suicidal thoughts or attempts are for children ages 5 to 11. Risk factors are depression. So if you have a kid who is expressing feeling excessively sad, they're highly irritable, they're changing their friends or just withdrawing from social relationships, all of a sudden their interests are changed, they don't want to go to their activity or their sport anymore. They're, drawing pretty dark things. They're writing about dark things. If they have social media, if you look on their social media and if there's anything concerning, if they're cutting, if they're engaging in just kind of high-risk behaviors, drugs, alcohol, you need to take it seriously, really seriously. Also, if there's any prior suicide attempts, that's another risk factor for actually completing a suicide. So if your kid, let's say at the age of 12, you took them to the hospital because they had suicidal thoughts, or maybe they even attempted it. Even a year later, you still need to be really on top of it because it's one of the top risk factors for actually completing a suicide. People want to know why. People ask me all the time, why now in the last 50 years we have the highest levels of suicide, not just amongst children, but also amongst adults. And so here's what I have to say about that, as well as pretty much backed up by research. Number one, for kids, the pressure to succeed, be perfect, be high achievers, attend top universities and colleges, be on the best sports team, is driving our kids to experience depression, low self-esteem, and in some cases, having suicidal thoughts or actually completing suicides. So this frantic, manic obsession with having kids who are straight A students and top athletes and the best at everything is literally almost avalanching a mental health crisis. So parents really need to take a look at that. Really, really, what I hear parents say to me all the time is, I just want my kid to be happy. And if you just want your kid to be happy, then you want to focus on things like having a kid who has empathy, having a kid who's a good team player, having a kid who experiences failures and can persevere from them. You can allow them to have failures, to not give them a trophy for everything, explain to them that they didn't make the A team, they made the B team, totally support the fact that maybe the best they could do this week was B- on a test. And that if they want those things to change, that they could work harder. And that is so important. We're taking that away. When at the beginning of this year, we had that teacher write that article about lawnmower parents, and I did a few segments on it. If we continue to be lawnmower or bulldozer parents or helicopter parents, however you want to put it, we are really taking away our child's opportunity to succeed. Number two is parent stress. So when we look at risk factors for kids experiencing depression, if their own parents are experiencing depression or experiencing high levels of stress and are dealing with it in dysfunctional ways or not even dealing with it, our kids see that, our kids model that, and they feel it because we're more irritable, we're less patient, we depend more on alcohol when we're experiencing high levels of stress. So number two thing I would say is, parents, you need to put that oxygen mask on yourself. Before you try to help your child, you need to help yourself. That is the reason why I wrote Mommy Burnout, because people say to me, well, you really work with kids most of the time. And I said, yes. And I wrote a book on mothers because I know that if I can help the mental health of a mother or a father, any caregiver of a child, that child is better off. And if we cannot help parents with the depression and anxiety that they are feeling at epidemic levels, we are going to have a pretty tough time helping out our kids. So, number one is the pressure to achieve needs to change. Number two, parents need to take care of their own stress. And number three is technology and social media. If you are allowing your child to be on technology and to be on Snapchat and those kinds of things, you are opening the door for them to potentially experience cyberbullying, for them to be exposed to some pretty dark things, pornography, other people's suicidal thoughts, and it goes pretty unregulated most of the time. So I'm a really big advocate. There's a movement of saying that kids should wait till 8th until they have social media. I support that. And even then, you have to assess your own child. Are they really ready? And how often are you going to be checking passwords and content and their friends' postings and postings that your child is tagged in? It's a way to really know what's going on in their world. So I would encourage you, if you're going to allow your child to have it, that you're checking into it. But I'm also going to encourage you, you don't need to succumb to the peer pressure of, oh, everybody has it, or, oh, I'll never get invited to anything if I don't have, a social media account. I always say to kids, a real friend will find you and a real friend will still invite you to things. If it's just based on convenience of a group chat or, something on social media, then maybe they're really not as good of a friend as you think. Just to end this, to really drive home the importance of this topic of depression and suicide in our kids, we are looking at the highest rates of suicide in 50 years, not just among children, but also among adults. We are looking at an increase of 33% over the last decade. We are looking at suicide being now the second leading cause of death under the age of 35, and even specifically between the ages of 10 to 24. The second leading cause of death, more than car accidents, more than, other things that we really worry about, a kid being poisoned or drownings and other tragedies, more than that. And at this point, we're looking at statistically 1 in 5 teens experiencing depression sometime throughout their teenage years. 1 in 5. So this is a topic that affects everybody. If it doesn't immediately affect your child, it very likely affects one of their close friends, a neighbor, a friend's child. So this is something we all need to care about. And the last thing that I'll say, being here in the Denver, Colorado area, we have seen 3 tragic suicides over the last few weeks. And so there is a phenomenon called suicide clusters, where kids who are already feeling kind of low and kind of hopeless about life, once one suicide happens in another, we do see it, and this is around the country, where you start to see clusters, because then kids sort of feel like maybe this is an okay way to deal with my stress or my hopelessness. And so what I would say to any parent who may be in an area where there has been any kind of recent suicide, talk to your kids. Talk to them openly about depression and suicide and any family history of depression, or anybody else who has died by suicide in the family. Talk to them about it. It is not going to put ideas into their heads. I know it's a really common fear, and I really do understand it. However, all of the research and my experience says you really don't put those kinds of thoughts into those kids' heads. They're already thinking about it. They're already exposed to it. But what you're doing is likely preventing anything from happening to them, or giving them a space to connect with you or get them professional help. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope that you will take what I had to say to heart. There's not too many subjects that I care more about than this one right now. And again, if you need any additional help, there are mental health providers In every community, there are suicide hotlines, there are text hotlines. You also can reach out for help as a parent that says, I need some extra support. Thanks so much.